Okay. So I wanted to do a more in detail training, just another little introduction on one of the sections of the ITERs to make sure everybody is on the same page as much as I can. So this little training, I'm going to specifically just talk about the space and furnishing section, which starts on page 17. Um, Before we go on to that though, I want to just say, like, I think we need to think about the itters. One person said, when I spoke of it as an instrument, I would just needed to clarify that an instrument in terms of observations and assessments is something like a rating scale. That's an instrument that you can apply or complete or conduct in a classroom to get a rating. Okay, it's just sometimes there's words that we learn in education and have multiple meanings. And so an instrument is just another word for using a tool to score a classroom, or it can also be to score something else. Okay. So anyway, I also am posting this week a typed version of the score sheet so that you can work on this without, because I want you to use it twice, but it's also, once you have an ITERS, in case you become an infant or toddler teacher, if you don't write in it, then you can keep using it over and over again. So I have posted a typed or Word document that you can use to, if you save as like the ITERS, infant classroom, ITERS, toddler classroom, save it twice, then you can draft it. But you might want to keep a blank version of it too, right? So you could put infant score sheet, you can put ITERS score sheet, save it. Then when you open it and you save it for the classroom that you score it for, right? Then you can use it as many times as you want. And actually, as a professor, I've gone into classrooms periodically and done an ITERS for a classroom to help them get feedback or get ready for a NACE accreditation visit, site visit. So just sometimes getting an objective person to come in is really great. And I think I spoke last week about the Child Development Council. Like if you have a class, you're having like maybe a difficult time in a classroom, maybe transitions are rough or you're not sure what's going on. Sometimes if you have them come in and do an itters, you can kind of find out like maybe areas of the classroom that aren't working. Because this itter scale, especially this latest one, really goes through more than just the actual physical layout of the classroom. It's also got a lot of stuff on how um, the teachers or the staff in the classroom are interacting with the children. And it really does. I think if we analyze it at the end, you could get a real sense of like a global, how a classroom approaches the four developmental domains based on this ITERS. I mean, I haven't tried it myself, but I think it's there. So I'm going to share a very short PowerPoint I made just to take us through the different sections in space and furnishings. And so last week, one thing I said is you might want to, as you're going into your hours, like say you know you're going in 3 times this week, you might want to take the sections and just plan ahead. You have to really read it before you go in, because if you try to do it all at once, it's not going to work. You're not going to do it right. And you're going to hate me. You're going to be like, Anna. And I'm like, you didn't watch the video. I know you didn't watch the video. Anyway, you did not take my advice. So I'm gonna just show you some of this. Let me see. This is the awkward filming of me trying to get to my PowerPoint. Here we go. And then I'm gonna get it to start. Stop doing that. There we go. Slideshow from the beginning. All right. So there we go. Space and furnishings, and I'm on page 17. Um, there's so this is why you really need to prepare ahead of time, right? So when you go in to score a classroom, and this one's a little easier because you really you could do this when the kids aren't there. Um, I don't think you need to have the children there necessarily to do these. Although sometimes it's nice to see how it flows when children are um, going throughout the day in terms of room arrangement and stuff. So the space and furnishing section of the ITERs covers the indoor space, furnishings for care, play, and learning, and room arrangement and display for children. Okay, some of those I'm not sure I like the title, but I don't, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. So I did, and I don't know that I could really make it through the entire ITERs to do this for each section. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to apply this mini lesson to each section, although I will try, just because I do think it's probably a really good way to connect the developmental domains to a specific classroom. So one thing you really want to make sure, especially you want to take your ITERs with you, because even though I'm showing you this, there's also important notes for clarification, right? And those notes vary based on whether you're in an infant classroom or a toddler classroom. And you won't have accurate scoring really if you don't read some of those. Um, and it's different for each, probably, right? So one thing that probably was confusing last week, you know how I was saying, okay, well, if you, as you score, you're supposed to start at the bottom, right? So you're starting at this section here, not enough space, and you need to go from the bottom up. I think a lot of us are like, well, wait, they have 7.1 and 7.2. Shouldn't that be their score? But that's not how it works because there's multiple layers to a classroom. And what you're going to do is go through and make sure that they have everything in each level. And then when you get to a level where they miss two, you go to the level before. So when you do space and furnishings in an indoor space, it says not enough space to provide adequate care for the highest number of children allowed to attend at one time. Example, basic furniture crowd space so children and staff cannot move freely. Crowding causes conflict among children. Space lacks adequate lighting, ventilation, and temperature control and is very noisy. Staff or children complain about temperature. Staff must talk loudly to be heard above constant noise. Space is generally in poor repair. Much peeling paint on walls, chipping plaster, damaged floors, large water stains on the ceiling. Space is poorly maintained, meaning it's dirty and grimy on the floors and rugs. Sinks are dirty, much built up soil around baseboards or furniture. Daily cleaning neglected. So let's hope that nobody is in that space that's that dirty. So just having been in the childcare center for us, I doubt, I mean, I guess if the air conditioning isn't working, you could have a problem with the temperature. But generally speaking, most, depending on if they're meeting code, OCFS has a lot of regulations about how you can furnish a room. And you should be honest if there's too much furniture and people can't really move appropriately. Maybe they haven't really adjusted it for the age. Maybe their infants just, changed to toddlers. We need to assess it on the day that we're doing it. It's not like, well, usually, no, that's not how it works. So make sure you go through. If they have each of these, then you move on. If they only, maybe they didn't get full, you don't really feel like there's enough one of these isn't quite, maybe there's peeling paint on the walls or whatever, chipping plaster. Um, then if it's only one section, you still move up. So it goes from 1 to 3. And this is the part where it got a little confusing on the video. So when you move up to 3 and say there's 2 or more that they don't have, then you're going to give them a 2. So you go up as far as you can until they don't have 2. And then you go to the one below. So enough indoor space for children, adults, and furnishings. Adequate lighting with some direct natural light, ventilation control, comfortable temperature, and reasonable noise level. Example, staff and children usually don't need to raise their voices to be heard. Room is not stuffy or gloomy. Space is generally in good repair with no major issues. Space is reasonably clean with durable and easy to clean indoor surfaces and is well maintained. Space for children is accessible to all children and adults currently using the classroom. Okay, so that means if they have all those things, then they're not getting a 1, they're not getting a 2, they're not getting a 3. Let's see if they get a 5. There's ample indoor space. So 3 was enough. Now we're ample. So if you feel like there's plenty of room and they can circulate freely for routines, group times, play activities. And if they have control over their ventilation, windows can be opened, there's a fan available, they have heat or AC. That's probably the one where a lot of places, especially like depending on your site, um, I think you have to have windows that open, but maybe not. And then I don't know if like I doubt that we have control over our AC or heat. We don't at the building, at the campus building. But that doesn't mean, and I'm not sure that really you're allowed to have a fan. That'd be interesting, right? So this might be where there might be more issues. So say you don't feel like the ventilation is that great. And if the AC isn't working and it's like last week, that would mean that you have to give them a 4. It's not gonna, this is just for us, right? So, but there's a lot of newspaper articles this week talking about public schools that were not air conditioned and were, having to be children and teachers were having to work in really probably not safe working conditions. So ventilation, temperature, those things are all important. Now, so if they had both of those, then you go up to 7. Natural light can be controlled. So I know like at the center we have blinds and I'm not sure what the OCFS regs are on that, but so we know we have natural light that can be controlled. There's not you're not going to end up being in a crib and they can't like you'll have the sun beating down on you. I believe there's blinds. And then space for children is accessible to children and adults with special needs, even when no such children or adults are present. So this is complicated. So that's talking about disability law or whatever. Is there room for a child who has a disability, maybe needs a walker or a wheelchair? And that I don't even know. Like some places are more apt to have it. Maybe they have one classroom that's able to do that, or if they have a child that has that, then they rework the configuration. So it may be perfectly reasonable to end up with a 6 or a 4 for this. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, okay, so the accessible piece, if you look at the clarifications for that, it says for indicator, accessible means that the facility, room, and any outdoor or other indoor space used by children can be reached by mobile children in the group and by adults. This is only required for children enrolled and adults working in the room. Indicator 7.2 requires accessibility for children and adults with disabilities who require special accommodation. For this higher level of quality, full accessibility is required even if no one with disabilities is currently enrolled. And then there's a whole thing on doorways and things. So also, if you just don't know based on looking, then you could ask. I believe when we built our center that the doorways are already the proper size, but I don't know for sure. Okay. Um, and then it says really, when we go back to that ventilation one, 5.2, when opening window doors is the only method of ventilation control available, they have to have screens, bars, or an other appropriate safety feature. If they may present a danger of children climbing out and falling, then you have to put no. I mean, some of these things are logical until you're really there and trying to do it. That's why you really got to read it ahead of time. So that's the indoor space. So if we go on to the next page. So let's say we ended up at either a 4 or 6. You'll see it that I'm gonna just write that down on here. I'm gonna assume 4 or 6 just based on like we have one person, I think, at a Head Start. We have two people working at our center, and then we have a person that works at a place in Cortland and a person in the city. So I don't have any idea what the city is like, and I don't know. I have observed at the one place in Cortland, but it's been a while. But you're also like some of these things, like our center, we had like $1 million grant to build it, and money is, these some of these things are very expensive. So, all right, let's go to furnishings for care, play, and learning. So that's page 19. So this is all about the physical environment, space and furnishings. And again, it's the same thing where you start at the bottom at the 1, and until you get to a point where they've missed, half of them, then you go, if they miss more than, 2, then you have to go to the one before. So it only has 1, 3, 5, and 7. But if they have, there's my dog. If they have, no, Esme, I'm trying to do something. If they have 2 or 3 of the sections, Rosie's crying right now, so Esme's trying to empathize and interrupt my video. So, anyway, we'll go through this quickly. So, furnishings for care, play, and learning. Not enough basic furniture to meet the needs of children for routine care, feeding, sleeping, diapering, toileting, some storage for children's possessions, and for routine care supplies. Please stop. So in an infant classroom, you're going to have different things that you would want to see. And in a young infant versus a waddler, you need different kinds of toys, right? So you got to keep track of that. Um, in a infant room, please stop. You're going to need cribs, and you need to be able to see the cribs in every area. Although that's not covered in this one, maybe it's in another section. So not enough appropriate furniture for play and learning. Infant seats, small tables, chairs for toddlers, low open shelves, and or storage options such as dishpans, baskets, or milk crates. Obviously, in a young newborn, you want to have like rugs on the floor that they can lay on, maybe mats. I'm wondering if there's a thing on here for that. Okay, so this actually says one of the clarifications is that if you only have infants enrolled in the classroom, you can't get a 6. Okay. Now that's interesting. And if you have infants and toddlers in a classroom, you have you have to have, a lower number for ratio. So usually we just don't do that. I don't know if you can hear Rosie, but she's crying. All right, let's see. So it goes into even details like for infants in high chairs or feeding chairs, a footrest is not necessary. So you really need to read the clarifications. All right. So not enough appropriate furniture for play. And some of this, it may be that you may need to use your judgment, and you will have room on your score sheet to write notes. Like, didn't feel like there's enough for kids to do. Magda may differ. They only need like juice lids and stuff, and boxes. Furniture is generally in poor repair. A child could be injured, like you can't have things that could get splinters or exposed nails. That's pretty logical, I hope. No softness provided for children at play. Especially in an infant room, you want to have, and toddlers, you want to have, pillows and soft areas, cushions, etc. So number 1, that's pretty low key basic, right? Then if we move up to 3, enough furniture for routine care, play, and learning. Each child has some unshared place to store. So they definitely want them to have some kind of a place to store their things. And that's probably for the parents as well, right? It's not just, I know when we had toddlers, they had a place to put their stuff, but we also had a section where their clothing and diapers and things like that could go. And infants, you're not going to want them to have access to certain things, but parents are going to probably have a place to put some, maybe sometimes infants have pacifiers that they only get during certain times of day or whatever. Almost all furniture is in good repair, none that poses a major hazard. Cribs have to meet safety standards. High chairs have safety belts. That's interesting. And I didn't even know, I didn't know you could have high chairs, but maybe we just don't use them. Um, I don't know. I haven't been in an infant room in a really long time when the infants have been really little. A lot of times they'll have kind of infant cha seats that have the belts and stuff, but when they're sitting up, I haven't been there when they have a bunch of high chairs. Interesting. At least one soft furnishing for play accessible to all children. So I would think that that means like that if there's 6 children, you'd have 6 soft things, right? Seats for children are comfortable and supportive, safety belt or footrest. I'm thinking, I don't even think you're supposed to have bouncy chairs, right? But you can have those bop pillows. Um, Children with disabilities have the adaptive furniture that they need, whatever chair they need to join the group, etc. And then that's level 3. I'm looking at the threes. For infants and high chairs or feeding chairs. I already read that. Okay. So if there are not enough routine care, play, and learning furnishings for the children present during the observation, do not give credit. If there are insufficient shelves for play due to there being fewer than a minimal number of toys and play materials in the space for the children present, stop it, Esme. Low open shelves, containers, or bins are sufficient for a yes score. So, when you have little infants, maybe you don't have big, shelves of stuff. You just pull out the bucket and everything. And they're saying that that is okay. Esme, I really don't want to redo this. Okay. So then it goes 1, 3, 5, 7. So if we've made it through 3 and you've gotten 3 at least, you can't miss more than half. So ample furniture for age and ability of children enrolled. So then it just does go into like the ages of the children, individual storage for each child's possessions, infant seats used for babies, small table chairs for toddlers and twos, adult chairs for use when working with children. So they do want, it says they want adult chairs so that you don't have teachers that have nowhere to sit. Because we want them to feel comfortable so that they do all the hard stuff they got to do when it's appropriate. Very low shelves for toys. Vast majority of materials are not crowded on shelves. And yeah, you can't have all the toys up on high shelves. Although if they're not moving yet, furniture supports self-help for older infants, toddlers and older children. Steps are at sink, low open shelves for accessible toy storage, sturdy tables and shelves for older infants to use so that they're not, they can't like pull them down on themselves. Um, if it's not applicable because you have really young infants, you can put NA. And that it tells you specifically when you're allowed to put NA. You should not be putting it unless it says that. So you really do have to read these carefully. Softness is provided in several areas. And, in an infant room, we have pillow, we have belt, tummy time. They got to be able to lay down flat. So you want to make sure there's enough for all the children to kind of have a soft area if that's what's going on. It says child-sized chair or couch, flat mattress or futon. It doesn't say you have to have all of those things. It says or. Okay, and then if they make it through 5, let's see if they get the 7. So it says routine care furniture encourages personalized care of children. So an adult chair to use while feeding young children. Again, you want to have the adult in the room, the teacher, able to be comfortable while they're providing quality care. Let's see. Each crib or cot has the child's name and is put in the same place. Several small tables are used for a few toddlers rather than one large one for all children. That's interesting. Let's see what this says. Adult chair to use while feeding very young children. Each crib or cot has the child's name and is put in the same place. Several small tables used for a few toddlers rather than one large one for all children. Okay, so that's interesting because I thought family style. I know like there might be two tables in a there's always two tables in a toddler room. Not one, but still family style, it seemed like you'd want one that each teacher could be at. Infant feeding chairs used rather than group feeding table. Okay. I'll be interested to see how these come back. At least 75% of tables and chairs are child-sized for toddlers and twos. So that just is really, you have a chair for the teachers in the room. Maybe I know sometimes I've been in there, there's like a couch or a rocker, a love seat that you could be feeding or reading with children um, as a teacher. But most of the things are all at the level and size of the children. And then at least two pieces of furniture for specific activities for older toddlers or twos are used during the observation. So that would mean housekeeping furniture, sand table, special bookshelf. Okay, so while you're observing, and remember this is meant to be done over a 3-hour span. Of course, if you take 3 hours to do one section, you're never going to finish. So you're supposed to be doing, you got to go in prepared to do multiple sections. But if you're in there for 3 hours, they're hoping that you're going to see the sand table. Maybe you'll see a child at an easel. Maybe you'll see a kid in the home living area, dramatic play area or with blocks. There, you've already got more than two pieces of furniture that they're interacting with. I think they want to make sure like that you're not having a child in just a very small space with not a lot of stimulation over a period of time. Sorry, no one is cooperating in my house right now with what I'm trying to do. And then the room arrangement, please stop. Maybe you can hear that. See, she is screaming, but this is reality. Room arrangement. So that is on page 21. Space is crowded, leaving little. Stop! Please, enough! I'm trying to do something for work. Space is crowded, leaving little room for play. Most of the floor space is taken up with routine care furniture, no room for interest centers for twos. You got to have interest centers for twos. Once you hit the twos, then we should have, a lot of areas where children can really demonstrate where they're curious. Major problems with room arrangement that frequently prevent adequate supervision. Like if you can't see children in at all the children at all times in a toddler room, that's a problem. Definitely a problem for infants as well. Furnishings placed to provide at least one open play area separate from routines, suitable space provided for different kinds of experiences. And these are pretty, read through them. You can see, are they clean? Is there an art and messy play area? It's you want to be able to make sure children are safe, but that to let the children explore. And it goes through, remember to only mark areas that are not applicable if it says you can do that, because there's some areas they want it there. You're not going to be able to score them at that level if it's not there. So, okay, a 7 in this room is going to be there's a cozy area protected from active play, so they can always go in a soft area. Traffic patterns provide easy movement for staff and children. Like you don't have to like squeeze around people. Play in quiet areas is rarely interrupted by active play, so your quiet space is separate from, block play or whatever. And the arrangement of the room allows staff to see all children at a glance, even while diapering and preparing food or playing with one child. A separate sleep room is always supervised. That doesn't happen usually in a center. I've seen that happen maybe in a home group care situation. Um, and if you observe that they aren't all supervised, that's definitely something to make sure you mark down on because we want to make sure everybody's safe. All right. Display for the children. We want to make sure there's pictures, materials are displayed, um, that things that are age appropriate, not even the displays shouldn't be for older children or the pictures shouldn't be for older children. They have to be age appropriate. Staff do not talk to children about displayed materials during the observation. If they never talk about it, I guess that's not good. That's why a lot of times with our assignments, we've been talking a lot about document boards. So like kind of building documentation of what the children are working on would be providing displays for children of the work they're doing and the play and the stuff that they're exploring. You should have 3 colorful pictures and or other materials are displayed where children can easily see them. And in the infant rooms, a lot of times I've seen them on the floor with like, clear contact paper over them. Some child artwork is displayed for older toddlers and twos. Um, Almost all displayed pictures within reach of children are protected from being torn. So laminated, I guess. Many colorful, simple pictures, posters, or photographs are displayed throughout the room. Obvious signs that display items are changed regularly. Um, so you don't have, like right now, my snowmen are still in my downstairs area because I haven't put them away. Um, that should not happen in a child in a classroom, right? So you're not going to have winter pictures. I guess you could if you were just trying to feel cooler, but you got to change up based on what's going on and what people are exploring. You wouldn't want to have like pumpkins right now because you never changed it because since fall. Um, let's see. Staff point out and talk to the children about displayed materials. And it says that you should observe it at least once. Um, Basically, too, especially with infants and toddlers, we're building, and we haven't really gotten into this that much yet. It's the next area of DAP we're going into. It's that building of language. And if we're not talking about the environment we're in and the things we're exploring and we're curious about, then we're not really taking advantage of how um, children learn language and learn to communicate. Now, in a score of 7 room, you're going to have photographs of the children and their families, their pets, things you can be talking about all the time, and they should be at a child's eye level. A lot of times I have not seen this in our infant classroom. Um, I've seen other things though, and it may just vary based on who the teachers are. This says mobiles and other colorful 3-dimensional hanging objects are displayed, but I don't think mobiles are allowed anymore. I think this is, even though this is the latest edition, it's still, I think, 2000. It's still not new enough, right? And staff provide extended talk about displayed materials. So a lot of infant and toddler the job of the teachers is to be narrating the world so that we're expanding their exposure to language. It'll help them to expand their language faster if we're talking to them. I know. So we want to, that's the cool thing about this is that they're actually saying, oh, I did hear staff talking about the stuff that's on the materials that are displayed. And it says in this section, it says you should observe it twice. So if they don't do 7, you go down to 6, right? So if they don't have a lot of photographs at eye level, if it's not at eye level, then you can't give them the 7. It's probably going to be more of a 6. Mobiles, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's not even allowed anymore. Let me see. I'm looking at the clarifications. I know they're not allowed to have mobiles on the cribs. Doesn't say anything. Yeah. We'll have to find out some more about that. Maybe you guys will know. All right. So those are the sections. And then if you get to definitely print out the score sheet, print out at least two. The first one is it's going to be more spread out than this because you should take notes. So say you end up scoring them at a 5, you need to write notes. Why did they get a 5 and not a 7? Like what were the things that were not there that led you to get a 6 or a 5? You know, basically your notes should be explaining um, what they did a good job with, but really we want to clarify why they didn't get a 7, right? So if you gave a 7, explain the items that were there that really led to a 7. And then if you give them a 5 or a 3 or a 2, I would explain why. Okay. And you can bullet that. And so you know how like it's bulleted on your sheet or it has 1.1, 1.2, whatever. You could write 3.3. Like if I was in the room and I'm writing notes for myself, I might just write 3.3, not didn't observe 3.3. And then when I get home to type it up, and I would not wait 5 weeks to type it up, I would click, expand that so that you're not like, you shouldn't be like going in super big detail while you're in the classroom because you're going to get interrupted and you need to get a lot done, but you also probably need to be present for other things that are going on. All right, so that's just a quick, so you see that's only one section, and that took 36 minutes to go through. All right, so that hopefully will give you an idea of how to read the scale, how to read the clarifications, and how to score it. All right. Now this is really still when you get these scores, these 7, 6s, whatever, that's just half the first part of scoring them. At the end, you average everything together. So you really do have to have all the parts in order to get the final score. All right, so that's space and furnishings. And let me stop sharing. Boom. But you can see it's going to take a while, but you can kind of start to get the sense that we'll get a full sense of how DAP plays out in each classroom. And it's going to look very different in an infant classroom versus a toddler. And one of the things you want to get out of this class is what are the differences? Um, Okay, both infants and toddlers, you're laying down a foundation for communication, and that's definitely one of the big things we'll be working on coming up this week. But we'll probably be using this video for multiple, semesters. So I'm not going to go too specifically into where we are in the semester. All right. Thank you.